Let's be honest, inspired by is just a polite way of saying you stole somebody else's stuff or copied their idea. There was an online blow up here in Australia that's really triggered me and I want to talk about it. G'day everyone, it's Coach Michelle J. Raymond, your trusted guide to building your brand and your business on LinkedIn. And as I shared in the intro, something triggered me, listeners, and it really touched a raw nerve with me because this is something that's happened to me before on many occasions, and I've never quite been able to reconcile whether it should be flattery, whether I should be offended, whether it's just the way of the world. So maybe you, as you listen to this episode, can help me kind of clarify my own thoughts. Now, what happened exactly, in case you missed it, there was a massive online blow up between two creators here in Australia. I'm going to call it RecipeGate. It's Team Nagy versus Team Brookie. And just for the record, I'm on Team Nagy because she is just wonderful. And if you've never checked out her recipes on RecipeTinEats.com, then you are missing out on some of the best recipes that always work. But I digress. Back to the actual point. Nagy released a video to say some of her recipes, which were featured in another creator's book, they were almost identical, and it pretty much just looks like plagiarism. And whilst Brookie denies it, and I am certainly no judge or jury or executioner here, but the similarities are too much that you just can't go walking on by. I don't want to turn this episode into a big rant, but it did definitely trigger me because I have people that in some ways I think they are flattering me. I'm not sure yet, but what happens is they take my work, whether it's my videos, my podcasts, my posts on LinkedIn, and they throw it through any of the generative AI tools. Maybe they change it and put it into the format of a carousel post, and I either don't get credited or it's my name in the smallest font you can ever imagine on the very bottom of the very last slide, if anyone ever pays attention to that. Quite often they'll tag me in it, which is how I kind of think that it's meant to be something that is, hey, I noticed your stuff, I really liked it, and I've changed it into a different format to share with my audience. But there's the other part of me that is like screaming, going, get your own stuff. I had to come up with this. And where I sit on that spectrum depends on the day. But when I certainly read this story, I was like, yes, this has to stop. But as I said, this isn't about having a rant about this. I want to talk to you marketers about the cost to your brand by copying someone else's brand. That is what's more important. And we see it all the time within industries where if I was to take the name off the post, it would be very difficult to understand or relate that post back to a particular brand. And this is the cost of copying, being inspired by, call it what you like, but ultimately it's everybody blending into the sea of same. Let's talk about, in today's episode, the real cost of copying and how to build a brand that's truly yours. And I can't wait to go into this. I want to make sure that at the end of this episode that you walk away with actionable tips that you can take and implement for your brand. So stick around, and after this short word about our podcast sponsors, Metricool, we'll jump into it. Listeners, here are the cool new tools from Metricool that make managing content so much easier. First up, never lose a content idea again. The post library feature helps with instant scheduling and idea management. Combine this with the Canva and Google Drive integrations, and it'll really streamline your processes. But did you know that when Metricool released their 2025 LinkedIn study, they found that LinkedIn polls are the least used format but achieve the highest reach. So the newest addition, the ability to schedule LinkedIn polls directly in their planner, is the absolute winner for me. This only scratches the surface of Metricool's capabilities, but I want you to be able to check it out for yourself. So I've arranged a special offer for listeners. Use code Michelle30 to test any Metricool premium plan free for 30 days. All the details and how to take advantage of this will be in the show notes. Let's talk about the line between inspiration and imitation. And let's be clear, everybody draws inspiration. That's completely normal. And I've got both hands up in the air. There are those out there that would say that there isn't any truly original ideas anymore. Some days I'm on that team and some days I'm like, not so sure. I put a lot of effort into some of the things that I come up with, and they really are my ideas. But recreating formats, copying phrases or visuals or sequences and things like that is something that happens today, especially if you take a look at platforms like TikTok. That is how it works. One person comes up with a great idea and everybody jumps on that trend and you do your own version of that. So it's really quite interesting. I think there's an influence of other platforms coming back around onto LinkedIn. But when we're looking at this, copying doesn't just affect the original creator. It actually makes you look inauthentic. And the real risk is that you damage brand trust. And that's what I'm most protective of when it comes to my own brand. Trust is your currency. And I always say in an online world, if you break that trust, it is near impossible to bring it back. Why? Because we're spoiled for choice. And there's another thing that I want to let you know, that it's not just your audience that's watching. Also, the LinkedIn algorithm is. And I'm going to talk about that next. The LinkedIn algorithm prefers original content. Now, that's not to say that we don't see when people use those viral templates and one person uses it, then the next person uses it, and sometimes they catch on fire. I wish that they didn't. I wish that somehow we could report them and say, this isn't original work. But that's not up to me to decide. That is up to LinkedIn. And from this perspective, I think for the most part, that recycled ideas get suppressed, not because of anything that LinkedIn does, but more the fact that as a member of LinkedIn and as a user, if you see a post that's just a copy of someone else's, you're not going to engage with that. And the less engagement, i.e. likes and comments, the less that post will be shown to other people. And so from that perspective, if you are copying, then it does become same, it doesn't stand out and you're not getting that engagement. And so if you want to build a brand based on being a cheap copy of somebody else's standout brand, then that's never going to work for your audience because we need them to engage for our post to be seen by more people. Now, if a post has already been done by your competitors, and this doesn't need to be a straight out kind of copy. You could actually just be unintentionally doing this by using the same word, the same language, the lack of personality, the lack of differentiation in the style of your content. It doesn't necessarily mean that you sat down and word for word copied somebody else's post. I don't think any smart marketers that are listening to this podcast do this, but I feel like within industries, there is a bad case of attack of the clones when it comes to content and nothing that is really surprising. And this is why the algorithms don't love it. This is because your audience doesn't love it. And from that perspective, you're not going to get the reach and engagement that your B2B business deserves. After this, I want to talk about why your style, your voice, and your format matters. Why does branding matter so much? I've got a funny story to tell you. And if we rewind the clock to when I started my business, which was originally called Good Trading Co., I thought that branding was paying somebody to do a logo for me. I had no idea what my client base would look like or even the services or products I'd offer, but it doesn't matter. I paid somebody to create a logo. I asked for the colors that I liked that meant something to me. And I said, I don't care what it is. You do it. I'm paying you. You're the graphic designer. And there was a lot of questions coming back at me. And my only response was ever, I don't really care. Just you're the expert. Leave me out of it. Because I naively thought that that's all branding was. Now, I have come a very long way, listeners. I am the 20 years of B2B sales experience has now also had an addition of 5 years of B2B marketing experience. And honestly, I have to laugh because If you look at my content when I first started my business, I didn't set out to copy anyone else. I thought that I was using my own words, and to a degree, there was some of my personality in there, but not a heck of a lot. In fact, if you go back and read my posts, I pretty much sounded like I was copying the LinkedIn help section. If you go and look up those articles on what is a company page, how to write a newsletter, that was pretty much my style. Every single post was a how to. And the funny thing happened to me that within 3 or 4 months of starting out as a creator for my business, and I had been doing it for 6 years as part of my roles for other people's businesses at that time, but somehow doing it for myself and for a business, I turned into this version of me I didn't even recognize. I turned into this buttoned up professional that didn't care about anything, that sounded like 50 million other LinkedIn trainers that were around. There was nothing unique. I didn't have a point of view. I didn't have anything that made me stand out. And to be honest, I didn't like that content. I didn't like creating it. I just remember at the time thinking, oh my God, if this is what it's like to own your business and create content for that business, I don't want to do it because this is so boring. What I realized is that I'd buried parts of me and thought I had to be a professional version of myself. So I left out the parts where I genuinely care about other people. I genuinely want them to grow their business. I didn't bring my cheekiness. I didn't bring out those parts of me where I'm prepared to call out stuff that I think is unfair or wrong or unjust or, any of those other pieces of my personality. There's so many other dimensions that bring me to life and make me stand out. My brand became invisible. There was nothing remarkable about me that would make you on the other side choose me as someone to work with. When you discover what makes you uniquely you and position yourself as the standout and obvious choice by everything to do with branding, then it is amazing that the clients and the customer base that you then attract are perfect fits, because part of branding and getting it right is about repelling the wrong types of clients and attracting the right types of ones. And in my case, I would actually say I'm far better off today because I repel the wrong types of clients, i.e., if you want to be in an engagement pod, you are not the right kind of person to work with me. We are going to have big problems. And so now the clients that show up that I get to work with are absolute dreams. The sales calls are much easier to deal with. I have a higher rate of closing those sales calls with new business. And when I actually work with the clients, I have so much more fun and enjoy it, and it's fulfilling work, which is why I set up my business in the first place. After this quick break, I'm going to share with you my tips for staying original even when you are inspired by somebody else's content. How do you build a brand that's truly original when you are consuming so much content across social platforms and everywhere else? I have to admit, listeners, this part of the podcast has taken me a number of different takes to try and record what I think will have the biggest impact. And I've deleted, I don't know how many takes now. This is probably 8 or 9, because one part of me wanted to go back to sharing the textbook versions of the answers. But the real Michelle J. Raymond that wants to be original and wants to help as many people and have a big impact wants to talk about this one from the heart, because I honestly believe that most people don't copy and paste other people's work because they are genuinely trying to just steal from them. And I am talking to the majority of people, and I know that my podcast listeners are good people. I actually think that for a lot of people, you are being measured and judged on the performance of your content. Social is also designed around that. The bigger number of followers, the lots of likes and comments, the more well received it is. The popular content seems to get the most attention. I understand how this can attract people to want to create copies of that. So how can you get around it? I think for me, if I was to make recommendations from the heart, it is I want to be able to see the content that is unique based on, does it share your unique point of view or your personal experience or your values? I think the combination of those three things, which can change at different times what things are most important to you, but standing true to those, like you can't jump on a trend that fundamentally goes against who you are. If you do that, your audience will be left going, huh? What's going on here? This brand is meant to stand for X. Why would they show up on this trend that goes completely against it? And for me, to stay true to myself is the most important thing. That at the end of the day, I have to sleep at night. I want people to work with my business because we're in that alignment and that I've earned their trust, and I'm not going to do things that I think will break that trust. In this world, there is only one of you. So do not lose that advantage. That is the one thing that nobody else can copy, even if they may take images, they may take the words off a page or copy your videos. They can't be you. So as you go into your next piece of content, back yourself and know that I'm cheering you all on. Until next week, cheers.